And I think when you look at success, it depends on how you define success, right? I feel there's still so much more to do. We have a very, very clear goal of where we want to go. We have a vision 2030. If you see my card at the back, we have a goal to grab, grow, and sustain #1 market share in the African markets by year 2030. So there's a lot bigger journey that we've got to go on to. However, having achieved what we have achieved, I think it's due to quite a few factors. First of all, having a clarity on our goal of where we want to go. It's defined, it's a SMART goal, it's specific. It's measurable, it's achievable, it's realistic, and it's time bound. So we have about 13 more years to go before 2030 when we want to reach this goal to be across Africa. And I think the issue here is of knowing your current state map, knowing your future state map where you want to go, and then seeing this is my journey, this is our journey as a company, as a corporate. Clarity there is important. Knowing the what is important, and then the how-tos. So for the how-tos of how to get there, we've clearly defined the area we will operate in. As Bidco Africa, as Bidco in the whole of continent of Africa, we're looking at FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods, and therefore that defines the curbs on the road. The curbs on the road are what we will do and what we will not do. We will be in FMCG, Bidco will be an FMCG company, and it'll be looking at all goods that are consumed on a daily basis. So we don't go into selling, jets or cars or whatever. This is consumer products that are consumed every day. Therefore, it defines our consumer community. So having that clarity and then having that clear focus of where we want to go by within what time has helped us get to the building blocks. Now, one is our systems. Second is our processes. Third is the way we do things, right? The manner in which we do it. We want to make it sustainable also. So systems, we actually go for world-class systems. Whether it be IT systems, whether it's in processes or it's in factories, we buy capital equipment once. We buy the quality. We buy what is world-class. We're looking for the lowest cost of production, unit cost of production, not the cheapest plant. There's a lot of plants you can buy equipment and say, fine, this is the cheapest, and I bought it because it was cheap. But cheap in the long run is not good. Okay, it's lowest cost of unit cost of production must be lowest. Utility cost must be low. Raw material usage is better, and the productivity must be good. So that's one thing. That's capex. Then comes in your processes. So we employ processes which actually have the goal of Kaizen inbuilt. Kaizen is where you actually look at waste removal, not cost removal, not cost reduction. It's waste reduction. Waste means anything that is non-value adding. We have all been wearing lenses to see anything that's non-value adding. We remove, we avoid doing that. So challenging the status quo all the time is an important attribute for what we do. In our decision making, if the status quo we're comfortable and say fine, we're okay, we will become complacent. So we actually make sure we become uncomfortable with status quo and then say fine, clear. A vision for the future and an action plan. So systems, processes, people. We focus on people also and making sure that our people have the type of ethos, the type of happy, healthy living we talk about, that it starts from our people. Then the people make those products that will now touch the consumers, which again remain happy, healthy living. So they actually do things with passion. We don't like anybody who has to come to work. If you have to come to work, it's a bother, it's work. When you wish to come to work, it's so easy. And that's the way the passion lies, and that's what we look at in terms of our people. And people who want to do things, who wish to do things and say, fine, let me make it a better day tomorrow. Looking forward towards next generation practices, which means not just looking at what is the best practice in the world. Looking at best practices, but from there, bringing in and making next practices for us going forward. Because in Africa, you can just not apply something that is used in America or something that's used in the West. You could probably use something that's used in Asia because that's still more appropriate based on the type of people we have, by the type of demographics we have. But having said that, I think we just can't bring in and say copycat. Copy and paste is not possible. So we actually look at what worked there, and we then bring the processes here and say, fine, now how do we make it work on a localized basis? Alongside this, I think important thing is look at what's the worst case scenario in decision making. look at the best case scenario, and then take a decision. We need to be comfortable with the worst case scenario. It helps so much in decision making. Once you're comfortable with worst case scenario, whatever is going to happen is for the better, and that's what we make happen. Yeah. So there's 3 people. It's not me alone. My father, my brother, they're in the next offices right now. So they're also part of the Bitco story. So we're family owned, 3 of us, and we own it, but we are professionally run. So we have migrated from starting off as a family-run, family-owned business and doing a lot of things ourselves to now more and more professionally run. And we will continue this journey. As we expand across countries, across regions, we will be expanding our capacity too. So we just can't do it with 2 brothers and a father. We've got to say, fine, let's bring in more management and of course empower more management teams. And soon we will actually be announcing those things too, where we actually expand into many other areas, many other adjacencies, and we actually put in more leadership teams. So that's one thing. But I think it's been important to look at, I look after tomorrow, my brother looks after today, and my father is the icon. The name Bitco comes from him. His name is BD Shah. So that name comes from him. So he's that icon who keeps us all together. And I think that's been a good teamwork for us. We don't have conflicts. We don't have conflict of interest or conflict of doing anything separate. We do things jointly together. So there's no infighting about what happens, what doesn't happen, and you know, the whole succession planning problems that a lot of people have these days. We don't have those issues. So we started off as Bitco Industries. We changed to Bitco Oil Refineries Limited. We were in the oil business. And then when we started looking at our growth plans, we're doing oil, fats, soaps. We said we need to add more adjacencies, more products, and we need to add more markets. So from Bitco Oil Refineries, we changed to Bitco Africa. And therefore, it tells people it's an Africa footprint. It's also into many more adjacencies, not only edible oils, not only soaps, but many more products. We're looking at drinks, we're looking at food items now, and there's a lot more that's coming forward. But I think when we talk about governments and handling governments, today, as we speak, governments are actually inviting us. We went into Uganda, the government also invited us and said, fine, do a project there. So we've got plantations there. However, that whole operation is run separately by a separate team. So we actually designate people to run that operationally. All decisions are taken in Uganda by the people there, and there's an MD there who sits there, makes it happen. Obviously, we know what's happening, but it's only at shareholder level, and the management is completely, the mind is all there, it's not here. The same way we operate in Tanzania, the same way now we're just starting off in Madagascar, all being run independently, so that it's run with the right ethos. We don't deal with government a lot because we don't do tenders, we don't do government contracts or procurement, and that actually keeps us out of trouble, where people are involved with governments and you got to go to somebody for a contract or whatever. We don't like that. We deal with consumers. We deal with consumer-facing industries directly, and therefore whatever we make, it goes to the consumer directly. So we deal with consumer-facing industries directly, consumers, and with consumers, we don't have this problem of tenders and stuff like that, so we don't have to deal with governments. However, when we go into a country, I think the issue is the economics of the country, the governance rules of that country, and the laws. East Africa pretty much is similar in all aspects. However, there are nuances that are there in the local markets. Corruption is another issue that happens, so compliance levels, which a lot of people who are traders and they smuggle goods into it, they don't comply with it. We comply with everything because we are fully computerized, real-time, online, and we employ very good systems. And it's difficult to compete with those people who smuggle goods in there. So unless there are compliance levels there, how do we deal with it? We actually go through associations, lobbying, and we actually tell people this is what's happening. We need to tell people that this is what's happening. I'm glad to say that we've stayed in Tanzania for now 17 years, and all the smugglers have now become industrialists. They actually put up industries in order to say, fine, now what we do is keep increasing the hurdle rate. So I hope that compliance will improve there. So, but government regimes like Madagascar, we just got in there, and I think there's a regime change happening there or whatever, and they do have issues around that. Whereas we've kept our code of ethics, and we have a very clear printed code of ethics. We do not pay a single bribe, we do not corrupt officials, and we actually fight for our rights directly. So when we're investing our money, when we're putting all this stuff in there, We do not look for any favors from government. But if we're investing in a country, we do our due diligence first to say, is that country, does it have rule of law? Does it have a governance system? That's the first thing we look at. If it doesn't have that, I mean, we've been invited to DRC, we haven't gone there. We've been invited to Somalia, we haven't gone there. Because I think rule of law is important. When you make a contract enforcement is important. So jurisdictions are important. So that sort of stuff is what we look for. So when we look at our goal is to grab, grow and sustain #1 market share in the African markets by 2030. This was set about in the year 2000, soon after the Y2K problem. And we set up our goal and said, fine, it's a 30-year goal. In 30 years' time, we've got to do this. Our goal was very clear. So it's the full value chain in the edible oils, fats and soap sector. So full value chain means from the soil to the frying pan. That was the goal. However, we started from the consumer end. We started off with soaps in 1985. Started making soaps, manufacturing and selling and distribution. And then we went backward into oils. Now from there, backwards from oils, we had to go into the seed crushing. So that we crush the seeds, we get the oil as a raw material. Then from there, we said we need to go back into farming. So there's oilseed farming and contract farming and cultivation. So that full value chain was decided upfront when we started our strategy. So all we've been doing all along is build our soap plant first, then backward linkage into the oil plant. The oil plant gave us raw material into the soap plant, and we had the route to market. So that linkage was done. Now the linkage to our crushing plants was to go into farming. So we bought a crushing plant, and then along with that, we bought the whole value chain. So when we bought Eliantro in 1998, we actually didn't buy only the brand, we also bought the entire value chain of going backwards into seed crushing. And from seed crushing, when you crush the seeds, you also get animal feeds. All the byproducts are animal feeds. So those are co-products which we sell in the animal feeds. And then we went backwards into contract farming with farmers. So sunflower farmers, soybean farmers, we actually contract them to say, you produce, you plant, we will guarantee to buy all your product from you. And that contract farming has done very well. However, it could have been better. Land in Kenya competes for maize. Maize competes with everything. So if they look at sunflower or soybean, they actually go and say, let me plant a food crop, maize. Right? And maize prices fluctuate. Maize price is always changing, and I think the issue there is it's a gamble. Whereas for our plants, sunflower, soybean, up front before you plant, we give them a price. We tell them this is our price, this is for this quarter, this is our price, and you deliver. So that's got a clear-cut margin inbuilt. But farmers being farmers, they always want to speculate and think, oh, next season this is going to be better, that's going to be better. So it's changing all the time. However, decision making was much more easier because we had a clear-cut goal of a 2030 plan, full value chain. So when Eliantro came up for sale, we said, let's go for it. When the Unilever brands came up for sale, when our goal is to grab, grow and sustain #1 market share. #1 means 51% market share. Okay, so therefore we were not there, and by them saying we are selling these brands, we went in for it. So decision making was much more easier to say it's in line with our goal. Yes, I think the acquisitions worked for us because when you buy brands, you're actually buying market share. You're buying that brand's presence. Plus these are legacy brands that have 30, 40, 50-year legacies in the consumer's mind. And I think that's important. You cannot go and buy 30, 40-year old legacy in the consumer's mind just like that. You try and build it up, it takes you a long time. So that loyalty was built in, so we bought that over. And I think they've successfully worked for us because once you buy the brand, we entered in the plant and saw the plant was actually not worth it. So we actually scrapped the entire plant and machinery and put up a whole new plant, increase our capacities there too. So even with the Unilever acquisitions of Kimbo and Cowboy, Tiger and Weeball, we made them successful. They had actually gone down overall. However, their mind presence or their appeal was still good, and therefore we revived the whole brand. And of course, now we've also got Kimbo Liquid and Kimbo Premium, so works quite well. Well, the decision making is an everyday affair, and I think everything's difficult at first. It depends on how prepared you are, right? The first decision was to go and make soaps, produce soaps, all that stuff. And when we went to the market, we said, let's do a different product, a differentiated product. It's going to be white. It's going to be better than the blue bar soaps that were there, which were harsh on people's hands. So we made a white soap which is much more softer and smoother. And we went into the market trying to sell the product. And stockist said, sorry, nobody's asking for your brands. Our brands were Kuku and Saba Saba. Nobody's asking for your brand, so we're not going to buy it. So that hit us and said, hang on, we've done all this, but nobody's buying our product. They don't even want to stock it. So then we had to take a decision, say, fine, let's buy 3 or 4 vans. Personally, myself, we would go into vans, selling shop to shop. But the same problem again. Nobody's asking for your brand, so how are we going to stock it? And we don't want to stock anything that's not moving fast. And that time Unilever or East African Industries then was having these big boards and big distributors. They actually tried to crowd us out of the market. So we developed a complete new system for the system for selling and marketing. All the people who were with my father in the garments business, we told them, start also stocking soaps. And said, hi, we're selling clothes, how can we stock soaps? And that worked. All those guys who's transferred from clothes into the soaps have now become only FMCG product distributors, and it worked very well. But it was supposed to be a new way of route to market because the old guys didn't buy. Second thing we had to do is go out and make sure that our product is good and give it to people on a consignment basis. Consignment means if it sells, then you pay us. If it doesn't sell, don't pay us. We'll take the product back. Otherwise, people were not prepared to stock our product. It's a new product. Right? Of course, it's not new soap, it's just a new brand name. And there's a big thing about brands then. So in that manner, we had to move it and make it happen. And it was a tough time at that time, but I think we had a can-do attitude and we had a passion and a vision to say, let's make it work, and we will make it work. One more decision we took was we will change ourselves to what customer demands, what customer needs. So we actually said, from now on, we will actually make sure we have quality with a price advantage, one of our ethos. Started from 85, it still works even today. Number 2, we will be flexible in our manufacturing to see if consumer demand tomorrow changes, we will change our product. Because if your taste, if your flavor changes tomorrow, you don't want to say, hey, I'm selling this, I can't sell, nobody's buying, and like Nokia or whoever or Kodak just say, hey, we died because nobody's buying our product. We said we have to change with the time so that we remain dynamic on that front. I think I love that question because if you talk about multinationals, what is a multinational? A multinational is an operation coming out from US or from Europe and saying we're going to operate in 50, 60 countries and sell our products. Whereas we are coming out from a Kenya focus. I'm born in Nyeri, my father's born in Mombasa, we're local. We're looking from inside out perspective and saying, we're here, we can do that. So upfront, initially when we went out looking for money for our first soap plant, 3 things hit us. One was we went to banks saying, here's a project, give us funding, give us financing. They'd look at me and say, okay, young lad, what's your experience? I said, no experience. Have you ever done oil and soap before? No, never done it before. What's your experience? Nothing. We just come out of university. And my father was in garments, so he says garments, and you're looking at FMCG. Unilever will kill you. 2 of the bankers actually told us, Unilever will kill you. They'll know East African Industries then will not let you survive. So that's somehow stuck in the back of the mind and said, fine, okay. If that's the case, what does Unilever or what does East African Industries have that we don't have? So yes, they have capital, they have access to capital, they have operations that are large enough, they have technical know-how that is available throughout the world and they can tap onto it. Apart from that, what else do they really have? They have distribution, route to market, they have a legacy name, they've got a big brand name, right? That's known globally. And they have a lot of money to be able to advertise for their products. Okay, so that was the building blocks. And we said, okay, if all those things that are their strengths, we must also acquire or build our own strengths similar to theirs. We must be no lesser than a multinational in those aspects. We may not be in many more countries, but we will operate along the lines of a multinational. However, we will not operate along their lines of bureaucracy and their whole problem of hierarchy. because the Kenya manager, if he wanted to do something, he'd have to report to somebody in Europe. The guy in Europe would report to somebody elsewhere. And that reporting system, for them to take decisions, takes them 6 months, 1 year. Now, when you're sitting in Europe or in America, as P&G would be sitting, they're planning for the whole world. They look at regions and say, fine, Asia, Africa, da da da. Nobody had focus on Africa. Everybody was looking at Asia, Eastern Europe and all that stuff. Europe was opening up at that time, and they said, hang on, let's go invest more money there. And this seemed like it's not important. So I know the managers here were very frustrated because they gave a proposal to say, let's do new capex, and it was never approved because it's not a priority country. For us, this is it. This is our own baby. We've got to make it grow. So that inside-out focus changed a lot of things. And therefore, frankly, as we speak today, even banks tell us you're probably better or as good as a multinational in Kenya because you operate at those standards. Your governance is proper, your systems are proper, and the same thing as a multinational has. However, your thinking and your decision-making processes are faster because here we can call a board meeting in the next 10 minutes. And we can actually start discussing issues and say, fine, let's go, no-go situations. Whereas for a multinational, a board meeting is 3 months, bureaucracy, there's board papers, there's board packs, and people all differ. If they differ, another 6 months, the bureaucracy was removed, and that's what we did. So that was a major turning point for us. When we went to the banks, gave them feasibility studies, all that stuff, they looked at it and said, we will not finance it. There was a problem. The one we went to was IFC, International Financial Corporation. And the guy there advised us, he says, look, you got a good project, young lad, but nobody's going to trust you because you don't have the experience and all that stuff. If you have 40% of the equity, then we can lend you money. And I said, we don't have 40%. If that's the case, we would have started already. So he advised us one important point. He says, start small, start at one end of the value chain, and then build up on it. So wherever you start from, make sure you build up on it and you got a building block to it. Make it successful and then don't do everything together, because we were trying to do the whole thing together, one shot. I said, start off one place and build up. And that's what we've been doing. We started with soaps first, went to edibles, went to crushing seeds, went into farming, and the whole lot just happened. And from there, when we did that in Kenya, then we went to Uganda, then we went to Tanzania, and then we went to other countries. So I think important point there is that start small, aim big, but never give up. It's the same goal and the same vision, even today, 32 years on, we're still pursuing. Oh, there's plenty of decisions every day. You've got to take either this or that. And I think it's important that you take a decision. Procrastination is the worst thing that anybody can ever do. And I think for us, we had to look at the market here and say, fine. When we went into soaps, we had to buy a small plant, build it up, and it was quite successful. Then we were going backward into the oil industry. And we looked at the oil industry and said, fine. There was a point where everybody else was bringing in refined products and processing it, including Unilever, including East African Industries. So our point was, if we do the same thing, if we become a me too and copy them, we will have no differentiation. We need to be different. So me and my newlywed wife, we went to Malaysia, stayed there 3-4 months in a factory as honeymoon. And we looked at the plant, machinery, equipment, all that stuff, and we said, hang on, here's refining and here's fractionation for the oil industry. And then we found out locally here, nobody was doing fractionation. So a lot of people said, no, you're a fool. If nobody's doing fractionation, that means there's no market there. You can't do it. And that was a decision. That was a game changer for us, because we came back and said, hang on, if nobody's doing it, we should do it, because that's where the market's going to go. Now, tough call, because you don't know. What if it flops? And capacities we were planning earlier were smaller, 30 tons per day and all that stuff. And we said, no, day one we're going to go 100 tons per day, refining and fractionation, and the full hog of rotating and making shortenings. And that decision was a tough one. It was not easy, but we did it, and we were successful on that one. And we started producing liquid oils, olein, from fractionation. Now the whole market was importing refined oils. That shut down, because now we were making them locally. So we had to go. The whole market had to move to crude. And we made sure, rather than managing change, we led the change. Now leading that change and the industry changing towards that showed us that, hey, if somebody hasn't done it, it doesn't mean that it cannot be done. A lot of paradigms that people have is, if this thing looks so good, why hasn't anybody else done it? Why hasn't anybody else put up a fractionation plant? And there's a Me Too syndrome in a lot of industries. And we went the other way around and said, fine, if nobody's done it, that's where we see an opportunity. And since then, we've been doing such things all over. We've been at the leading edge of a lot of things and saying, fine, if nobody's done it, doesn't mean that it's not possible. You just got to make sure your economics are right, your market demand is there, and go for it. I think success stories are plenty. There are also failures, because you can't say everything's successful. You plan 10 launches, 10 new products, and 3 or 4 may flop. It happens. Sometimes even 7 may flop. But those 3 or 4 that succeed can be done very well. The important point here is not to say that I've taken a decision now and there's no turning back. We are responsive. We change as the consumer demand changes. We need to be able to make sure our cycle times are faster. What does cycle time mean? Cycle time means when we launch a product, and if it doesn't work very well, we will change it, tweak it, and make it happen. If it doesn't, we can even drop it. Now that changing yourself faster and being online all the time is very crucial. So your feedback systems from market have to be inline. And that's why we've gone SAP or online systems across the board everywhere we operate. Anywhere we operate today, we've got a whole online real-time system so that feedback is instant and your actions must be taken instantly so that you cut the bureaucracy. Now that feedback loop, once it is shorter, you don't have a major flop. So if something is not successful, is not working, you tweak it, change it, move it, improve it. The problem a lot of people have is they wait for a year or 2 and say, yeah, we've launched it, we've done all that expenditure, now we have no choice. And then after 1 or 2 years, the CEO is sacked and the people are moved. And here is a founder director. We're all founder directors. We already said we're shareholders. We got to make it work, so make it happen. Whereas we couldn't divorce ourselves and, oh, sorry, it didn't work, so I'll go look for another job. There was no other job. There was no plan B. I think these things help a lot. And I think it helped us in that sense to say, we need to be responsive, need to change to demand. And be able to change yourselves. So wherever we built our plants and everything else is flexible manufacturing. It's to be able to change something tomorrow, quickly. Whatever we do best, we do. The rest we outsource. So transportation, we're not good at transportation, we outsource it. A lot of other things we're not good at packaging, we say get it done from other people. So we didn't invest too much money in that packaging, because tomorrow packaging demands change. Consumer wants it in a different bottle or he wants it in a different pack. We're able to do that. So we kept that open. I think that's been a good success story for us. There are 2 types of leadership, right? And the difference between leadership and management. Management is where you manage things and keep the status quo. Leadership is in terms of saying, 1, take a decision. Lead in that decision making, number 1. Number 2, it's not casino, it's not gambling. You do your calculations, you do your maths, you do your assumptions, and based on that, you've got to take a call and say, fine, this on the best basis of probability is going to work. Okay? Now, leadership means assessing the risk and the benefits, the cost and the benefits. If you take a probability, 1 to 10, and you take the gravity 1 to 10 of taking a decision, multiply the probability times the gravity, and then you assess it. So let's take a decision, any decision you take, and say the probability of failure is 1, the gravity of failure is 10. 10 times 1 is 10. If the probability of failure is 10 and the gravity of failure is 10, 10 times 10 is 100. I'd rather not take that risk on. Whereas if it's 1 times 1, I'd say, hey, hang on, no brainer. So I'm just saying, in your decision making processes, this is important. Now, leadership there is quite crucial to say, let's make sure that we pass this whole ethos of how we take decisions down to our people at the bottom level, and teach them this methodology so that they also are able to decipher and take decisions. And the third thing is empowerment. I think leadership is not just that I am the only one, I'm the go-to man, come to me for decisions and I'll give you decisions. That's not leadership, that's autocratic. That's like you come to me and if I'm not there, the company closes down. I think leadership is in making sure that you create many more leaders in the organization. Arouse, there's a leader inside every single person. Arouse that leader and say, here it is, this is the methodology, this is the process, and give them the confidence. Number 2, allowing people to make at least 1 or 2 mistakes. is leadership. Because if you don't allow that, and if somebody makes one mistake and you slam down on them, they will never take a decision. They will never take any leadership anymore. They will upward delegate to you and say, okay, I can't take a decision, you take a call on this one. And then, the leader becomes the go-to man. That's not leadership. Leadership is where you empower people. Now, empowerment doesn't mean I just give you the baton and say, run it. You got to work with 2-3 ingredients. And that's integrity. Right? Integrity, intent is your character. That's a non-negotiable. What you say and what you do must not be different. And of course, that together builds in trust. Now, if somebody is lacking competencies, we can train, teach, improve them. You can show them how to do it. With all these three, with integrity, intent, competency, and then you get results, multiply them all, you have credibility. And establishing credibility is important for leadership. Once it's credible, right, then that brings in trust. Once you've kicked in trust in the organization, then you can empower people. So empowerment without trust and without integrity is useless. So if you empower people and you don't trust them, all you're going to do is send 10 auditors. I know the auditors in the room will talk about it, but you didn't send auditors. Auditing is a waste. Why do you need to audit people who've done the right thing? So if you can start doing real-time online auditing rather than auditing after the event. A lot of auditors, with due respect to all auditors in this room, auditors go back and inspect after the event. So it's like a dead body and you do a post-mortem and say, cause of death was XYZ. Because we're saying here, let's be preventive. And that's true leadership. I think the key differentiator is being informed of the situation. If you're taking a decision on a new marketing model, if you're taking a decision on a new product, you need to be informed about it. You need to have something we call intelligence. I mean intelligence in the sense of there's data, say there's data of 4,000 pages, there's information, which is, that data is converted into information, which is 4 pages, and that becomes 1 page, which is called intelligence. So analyzed data, analyzed information becomes intelligence. When you have the intelligence, you know exactly what are the pros and cons of this decision, what's happening here, and what would be the worst case scenario, like I said earlier, and the best case scenario. And then you can take a decision. Okay? Once you have that, you drive it down to the people below you, so that when they're presenting something to you or when they're presenting it to themselves, they've already seen that. Being informed about what works, what doesn't work, is very crucial in the whole decision making. When you are informed, you are better at decision making. Why? Because you know what works, what doesn't work. And you also look for alternatives. In this whole aspect we're taking, are there any alternatives? Is there any other better method? And don't worry about it, because today we have internet. Can you believe when we started off 32 years ago, there was no internet, there was no phones. It was like, there were phones, but you had to come to the office to get your messages, to do your correspondence, to do your phone calls, and to do your replies. Today the office is in your hands wherever you are. It's become mobile. Things have become much more faster. We used to use telex machines to even, do transactions. Now we have phones, email, WhatsApp, all those sorts of things. So I think important thing is being informed about the pros and cons and what are the alternatives available, and that really enables. Yeah. So when you've taken a decision and you realize, hey, that was a blunder, and you look at it and say, okay, fine. Was it a complete blunder? Is there any hope of revival or survival, or it's completely dead? If it is not, there's no hope. Cut. We got to cut loss there, and say, fine, no more investment there. Start doing other things. But sitting on hope and thinking, yeah, somehow in time things will happen and let it work is being a fool. However, there are certain instances where you do advertising. You got to launch a new product, you advertise, and the product doesn't sell anymore. You got to go to root cause analysis. And I think important thing is root cause analysis, the 5 whys. You ask, why didn't it work? Why did that happen? Why did it happen? You get to the root cause and you sort from root cause. Is it the product? Is it the pricing? Is it the packaging? Is it the placement? Is it the promotion? What is wrong? Right? And based on that, you get to know what's happening. However, the VOC, which we call the voice of consumer, is so important in everything. Everything you take a decision on, you must know what does the consumer want, what's the customer want. When you actually work your systems towards customers' needs, address the customers' needs that are met or unmet needs. When you address those needs and you give them a product or a service which is addressing those areas, you really can't go wrong. You go back to consumer or customer and say, fine, now what went wrong here? Why aren't you buying? What's really not working? And you tweak that. And I think listening to the consumer, listening to the customer is the most important. You cannot do a boardroom decision here and say, fine, somehow I've done everything right and it's got to go and it's got to sell. People may just not like your product. They may not like the color. They may not like the appeal. They may not like what it does for me. Addressing the consumer's needs is the first thing you must do. And that's your acid test for any product, any service. So there comes a time in your work ethic, work, whatever you do, where you actually see people who are productive. You actually see people who are non-productive. You actually see people who are non-value adding, right? However, when we look at that, we actually say, fine, let's look at issue-based rather than personality-based. What's the issue? What's not working? Now, when something is an issue and it's not working, it doesn't operate anymore, is it the person? Is it the process? What is it? If you improve the processes, you de-skill every process. A lot of people make this mistake. They never de-skill the process and they keep superhumans there to be able to say, that person knows how to solve this problem. Simplify that process. Simplify that entire thing and make sure that there are enough people who know how to do their own little thing. Okay? If somebody makes a mistake, second time they make the same mistake, and third time they make the same mistake, despite having told them, you actually move them on, elevate them to some other place, or promote them to some other company, so that they're no more with you. That decision making is sometimes lacking in a lot of people, because people become furniture. They, oh, this guy, I've had him for 10 years and he's okay, he's a good person. But if he's not productive, if they're not really adding value to you, you don't look at that. That's a blind spot, and you must avoid those blind spots. However, people are people. People can change, people don't change. You have three things that come to you: knowledge, skills, and attitude. Knowledge and skills can also be enhanced, improved upon, but it's attitudes. And when you get people with an attitude, arrogance attitude, or I call it an MBA attitude, where they know everything, you can't even teach them anything, you don't want to hire such people. Those who become arrogant with their own knowledge and say, I am fully learned. After my MBA, I don't need any more knowledge. We believe in lifelong learning. We believe in learning by doing. Even today as we speak, I learn, as long as I keep an open mind. But those with closed minds who say, I've acquired this degree, I have done this Harvard thing, I've done that thing, and therefore I know how to do it all, that you don't want. So that's important to decipher those sort of people. But sometimes when you got to hire and fire, you got to fire. I think that's where the decision making process for a lot of corporates is difficult. To letting go is a big issue. It's not easy. We're not gambling. If there's a risk that is unknown risk and we say just take it and see what happens, then you're going into Death Valley. Okay? Whereas we take calculated risks. We do take risks, but we take calculated risks and say, fine, look at the pros and cons of this. What is the worst that will happen? What's the best that will happen? And what if it all fails? We are okay with it. We then go for it and we take that risk. If you haven't done that maths, then you just go and say, let's try it. And then it's a pet project, right? It's a pet thing. Let me just do it because my intuition tells me so. I think you've got to listen to people and say, fine, what's happening? However, a lot of times, please, one should listen to the intuition, or we call it gut feel. My gut feel tells me this is going to work. Listen to it. But at the same time, add some calculations to it, add some maths to it, and do some analysis of customer demand. Most important thing is, I see a lot of entrepreneurs that come up today, lately, they say, I'll do this product because I have an idea. I asked them a simple question: who's your customer? And they say, I don't know. Who's going to buy this? Who's going to pay you for this product or service? And they don't know. And that's the disaster. First thing you got to know is who is going to buy that service? Who's going to pay any money for that service or that good? And then you know your target market. A lot of people forget, no, if I have a good product, it will sell. People will buy somehow. I place it on the market, put it on the supermarket shelf. There are 50, 60,000 items on the supermarket shelf. Does everybody buy everything? No. Why do people buy what they buy? It depends on what type of decision, whether it's an emotional decision, whether it's a rational decision, or it's a clear cut and dry. If it's a decision on foreign exchange rate, and say somebody's giving me a foreign exchange rate of 103, somebody's giving 102.50, I'll go for the 102.50. There's no gut feel there. It's just straight clear. So you make your processes are such that you analyze that quickly. Okay. There are some places you have to take a gut feel. Do I travel tomorrow or not? Gut feel is, yeah, I'll travel. What's the worst that'll happen? The plane could go down, but then we still take that risk, right? Even taking a car from here to Nairobi would be risky because there could be an accident, right? So if you put a lot of those what ifs into everything, then life you can't even live. You stop breathing. I think it's important to decipher what is important, what is not important. And I tell you what happens. When you start, it's the same analogy I'll give you. If you don't drive a car ever and you're going to learn your driving, or you're going the first day driving, right? You're going to be so conscious about the gear and the clutch and the steering and the signal and all that stuff, and it becomes like very difficult. You're so conscious about it. If you've done that over 10, 15 years and you've been driving, you don't even focus on any of that. You could be speaking on your phone and you go into your car, drive, start, it all happens automatically. That's autonomous, right? That's what becomes second nature to you. And that's what I'm saying. When you develop that culture of decision making or operating, these things are not important, not difficult. But then what happens is the new things that you do, the extra things you do, you got to have an attitude of saying, I need to learn more of that. You can't be arrogant that I know driving, therefore I can use my phone, I can stop, close my eyes, all that stuff. No, you still got to focus on the windscreen and the rear view mirror. So I think losing that focus is where people make a mistake, and you must never lose that focus. So there's a situation where we were in the market, we wanted to grab, grow and sustain number one market share. Here's a brand that has worked in the past. We had brands we had created ourselves from nothing. Chippo, Chipsy, all those products that we had developed ourselves, and they had become quite good products. So we felt that with this legacy of Kimbo, because everywhere you go, Kimbo was like, oh, I know Kimbo. So brand awareness was massive. And yet, we analyzed the point where it was declining and why it was declining. It was declining because they had not invested in new machinery, new equipment, and we knew we had the better equipment. We knew we had the latest equipment, and we actually added more lines in the latest of equipment, and we could do that faster. So there's something that we call confidence. And I tell you what, 50% of the war in any business is confidence. You've got to trust yourself to say, yes, we can do it better. And if not, we will try and tweak it. Like I said earlier, if a multinational had it, what did they have that we didn't have? And we had to make sure that, okay, fine, we don't have this, we don't have governance, let's put in governance, let's put in systems, let's make sure we do things faster. And that was important. And we learned all the time. So being responsive, agile, and adaptive to situations was much more faster. We did comparisons of why Kimbo was falling or dropping. They never changed their packaging. They were still in steel, whatever, and they would never go to plastics. We were in plastics already, so we said this is for us was a surefire thing. So we had that confidence, and we had that experience behind it. Was it a risk? Of course it was a risk. Would it fail? It may fail, but we were prepared for it. So there's two things, right? First of all, you said when we recruit, when we actually hire people, do we look for, agencies to hire? Yes, we do. But we don't go in for exclusive agencies who say we're the only ones. We actually float it around and say, fine, whoever can provide us with the best candidates, they may win. Because I think when you go exclusive for somebody, you get put into that category and say, fine, this is the only person who does this for us. But today, things have changed. There's LinkedIn, there's so many more apps available, there's executive search available online. People just find out about you. So the important thing now is about projecting the company in the right profile, putting it on all the social media and making it available to know exactly what we're doing. Once people know your ethos, they know what your company is about, you become likable. And once you're likable, people say, fine, I want to be there. Today it's not about just pay. Pay is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's also about what am I going to do when I go into this company? Am I going to make a difference, or am I going to be meaningful? Am I part of a journey that's going to be growing? I can tell you with our goal to grab, grow and sustain number one market share in markets, African markets, people are inspired to say, let me grow with these guys. And there are many people, many stories we have where people have grown with us over the last 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. They're still growing and saying, fine, I want to grow with this. So that's one thing. Second thing is consumer information network. A lot of these people, research agencies, are selling their research. And they'll make it available to anyone who wants to buy their research. So voice of consumer, voice of customer is where we have our own people on the ground talking to people, feeling the pulse of the people, finding out what they really want, and then bringing it back to us same day. Including people at the shops who are actually looking and saying, fine, people are buying this, we're not buying this, we need that feedback. And from that feedback, then we are responsive to take action on it. So that's important. Whereas a lot of filtration happens through research agencies and all that stuff, and they try and package it for a few people. And you know, like O&M had said once, 50% of research is a waste. You got to give it a discount factor of 50% and take decision on that. It's difficult. So therefore, we try and rely a lot more on our own feedback of what these people have done. Check and verify. Is this really happening? And today with technology, you know, you're in a shop, something's wrong. Take a picture, send it across on WhatsApp. Everybody's gone and seen it. Okay, fine. Take action. What's happening? So the speed of response is faster. Whereas a lot of research companies will try and put it together over 3 months. They want a lot of fees for it. And after 3 months, you get stale news. We'd rather have it live now of real time what's happening. As they call it, breaking news. So we have the IT systems that give us all the information that you want. But there's also clear-cut designations and roles. There's role clarity of who's doing what role, right? So they know who's handling what area. Someone's handling hygiene, personal care, someone is handling edible, somebody's handling HR. It's known already. However, if there's something that's urgent that needs to be decided upon, we have an open door policy. Anybody can walk into my office, walk into my brother's or my father's office and come in and say, fine, here, this is an issue, let's solve this, let's resolve it. It takes us no time to call a board meeting and say, fine, and any one of us can call it. It's not a structured one where you have to have a board paper 7 days before, put an agenda there and nothing out of the agenda. The rigidity has been removed. Much more informal, much more faster. However, it's issue-based. So it's not about personality that only the chairman or only this guy or the CEO can call that meeting and nobody else is authorized for it. Now, that structure we also have in our other partnerships that we're doing right now, where there's formalized board structures, formalized minutes. But today, we've changed that to even going online. We can pass a board resolution online within a day with people in 5 continents today. We've approved electronic approvals by circulation. So what's a board meeting? A board meeting is where you present the issue, you want a resolution, this is to be resolved, you present the same thing as you present in a board paper, you can present it online and send it across to people wherever they are. And then make the decision easy, it's yes, no, go, no go, or what, right? Make that simple, people give you confirmed, approved, not approved. And that system works so much more better for decisions where you have to take things on the spot. Where things don't have to come to the board and board doesn't need to think about it, people are empowered to say, fine, if it's a pricing issue, all that stuff, sort it out. It's not that everything comes to the board. Only board matters. So there's management structures where there are people. It's already there. There's an organization chart, there's a structure where things get handled. If it's sales, if it's marketing, if it's manufacturing, it's all there. If it's finance, there are people handling it. And there are role clarities there. So they've been given the curbs on the road, which is the values. You will do this, you will not do this. That's very clear. Okay. The other thing is they've been given broad empowerment to say, fine, as long as we're meeting the goal of the company, do the right thing for the company, take a decision. You can even report a Kaizen afterwards. I've done this, I've improved this, I've done that. Record it and review it after it's done. Not to say I need upfront approvals. You can't do anything without asking me. Then we can't operate. I can't even sit with you here for half an hour and say, hey, I'll be, sorting things out and sorting people out. So that's the way we remove all the firefighting. A lot of people get disoriented because the whole decision-making process is long, procrastinating, don't know what to do because people at the top and the bottom are disjointed. The guy at the top has got no ear on the ground or pulse. They don't even know the pulse. They're sitting in some boardroom somewhere, swanky office, but they don't know what's happening on the ground. We're here where the action is. We know. If I have to move down, just go down, check things out and move it and get it done. You get that ethos is different. So our goal is to grab, grow and sustain number one market share in African markets by 2030. If that was your goal, what would you do? Would you go public or would you not go public? So as long as we can fund it, we can actually expand it and make it bigger from our own funding, from our own systems, yes, we'll do it. When it becomes like exponential growth and we need capital, we need XYZ, we've got avenues. Now capital today is not only by going public. Globally today there's so much more capital sitting around in private equity funds and funds, it's earning very little interest. So they are interested in parking money and saying, run this in your company. So capital is available. The day we need it, we got lots of people calling on us, say fine, use it. We don't need it right now. But when we need it, it's available. We will take that. The last resort will be going public. Once the growth is done and we've achieved it, then we'd rather go public because then you're not in growth mode. When a company is in real growth mode and fast growth, going public will slow you down completely. You know why? The decision making gets stopped by non-value adding activities of report this, report that, report this, report that, report this, report that, and you can't take any actions. Whereas in a private company, you can start saying, okay, let's do it, get it done, move it. You're stuck. One more thing in the going public, the biggest problem that the companies are facing, and I've spoken to a lot of public companies, is the quarterly earnings syndrome. I call it the Wall Street syndrome. Okay? Quarterly earnings. If you don't have quarterly earnings every month, every quarter to quarter, the CEO gets fired. Hello? When you do a strategic investment, when you're starting to do a growth strategy where you got to invest capex, you got to start operating new things and new plants, you're not going to get that sort of income straight away. There's a 2-year, 3-year lagging period after which you will be able to harvest. But the Wall Street, the stock market is always looking for profit, 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 distribution, distribution, distribution. So there's a whole misalignment. And I think a lot of people are feeling it today, and that's why you talk about inclusive capitalism today. You talk about removing this quarterly earnings syndrome, because if you don't remove that, a lot of big public companies are not growing exponentially. They have a problem because they also have to slow down their growth. And I think all they're doing is cosmetic. So, innovation and research, these are two different subjects. Research is to research market research, product research, consumer research. There's a lot of types of research. A lot of it is to get insights or intelligence into the markets. It's also to see new products, new product development, because there's a new product development area which you can do that. But that comes linked to market research of what is the demand, where is it going to go tomorrow. However, innovation is something that cannot be a department. The biggest risk you can have is we have an innovation department and they do innovation. I'd rather say company-wide innovation. You need to have everyone looking at innovation, not 100% of the time. 10-20% of the time should be spent on innovating, renovating yourselves and innovating new things. The rest of the time in compliance and making sure things happen the way we planned it up. You change, standardize, change, standardize, change and standardize. You don't innovate every day and say, fine, we're innovating. You must standardize that innovation. A lot of people make an innovation, they go here, they go down back. Innovation, down back. Innovation, down back. That's a syndrome you've got to avoid. So when you innovate, you change your standards, you operate at those standards, you innovate again, you operate those standards, which is elevating your standards all the time. Innovating processes, innovating products. You could call that part of research. New innovative products. That goes back to consumer. Consumers' needs, unmet needs, or technology. In the technology field, you show people what you've never seen. You know, our brains have a 10% area where there's you know what you know. Another 10% is you know what you don't know. I can't fly a plane. I know I can't fly a plane. I know what I don't know. 80% is the area you don't know what you don't know. That's where innovation comes in from. You don't know what you don't know, and that's why you must be able to say, fine, let's look for a better way of doing things. In our values today, we have a very clear item. Look for better ways every day. There is always a better way. That ethos is driven to everyone here. So that we always find a better way. That tells us two things. One, the way we are doing things today is the worst there could be. Find a better way. Same time, you never arrive. You're always arriving. So the attitude as a company we have is, you never arrive. So you never get arrogant and say, yeah, to Mafika, we're already there. No, you're always arriving. So therefore, there's always a better way. Find it. So your second question was drive. Yeah? It's not petrol. It's not a Range Rover that drives me. It's the passion to make a difference, make a positive difference to whatever we touch. I don't think money is a driver anymore. I think what drives me would be much more of passion to make a difference and pick up new challenges, right? And really, it's got to be enhancing happy, healthy living across the region. If whatever we do doesn't enhance happy, healthy living, if it's not sustainable, and sustainable does not anymore mean just environment. Sustainability means environment, it means morale, it also means profitable growth. Because if you really don't have profitable growth, you're going to be a charity. And if you're going to be a charity, the charity remains so long as the donor is still available. How can you give if you don't have? But be a channel. Being a channel that it comes through me and it goes through me. I'm a soul on planet Earth. I'm not the doer, it's happening through me. Oh, I never work, I just have fun. I never go to work, I never have to go to work, I just have fun. Because for me, work is fun. So my attitude to work is like, it's fun, I enjoy what I do. My typical day, I would start early morning, a bit of yoga, a bit of breathing, a bit of Twitter, a bit of internet, a bit of replying on messaging, sort that out, okay? And then, I read up about at least an hour or two in the mornings. And then if I have meetings, I have meetings early morning, or I come to Thika, or, and then of course the day goes in getting things done in the office and making sure that we're on track with everything. And sometimes it's 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Sometimes it's 10 o'clock. Last night it was 12 o'clock. So it's okay, it happens. But it's more mission oriented, get things done and make it move, make it happen. When you're internally intoxicated, you don't need external intoxication. So I don't drink, I don't smoke, I'm a vegetarian, and I have fun.